Looks like we're on.
I think we have landed. So let's.
Am I echoing?
No.
Recording in progress.
How about now?
I don't think you're echoing.
You're echoing.
Oh, I'm echoing. I'm echoing. You have to go. Bye.
Bye. Miss you.
Dani's gone, but she'll be back. Have no worries. And until then, I will visit with Nikki and Thor. Hi, guys. And Dr. Laura, who's in the other room and in the chat room. Jerusha, Bast, nice to see you all this evening. Waiting for Dani's triumphant return. I know she'll be here. I know she can do it. All right, let's see. Rex, Jana, here's Dani. She's coming.
How's the echo situation?
No echo now.
We fixed it.
We fixed it. Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. Dani is here. She'll come through the portal any moment now. I hear her, but I don't see her.
Oh, sorry.
And there she is. Yay! It's a tiny miracle that each of us are here. This has been, this has been stressful. You guys might notice that it looks different. A number of things have been going on for me the last week and a half that have turned them into the unexpectedly like most stressful last week and a half that I can imagine anytime recently. But I seem to have survived, and I'd like to thank Jeff from the bottom of my heart for tolerating the monster that I can become when I have meltdown after meltdown, and for helping me build this incredible studio that is not quite done yet, because this was a learning process and half of the things we tried to do didn't work and we did it wrong and all that kind of stuff. But we are most of the way there. And so thank you, Jeff. I think he's at the airport right now going home, so I doubt he's hearing this, but much love and appreciation to you. And Dani, good evening. How are you, my friend? Good afternoon to you.
Good evening, Wednesday evening. Thank you, Jeff, for being such a good friend to Emily. I have some on the ground reporting to do.
All right, let's do it.
I was in Boulder this weekend. It's such a bummer how they're ruining that city with all their smart nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed at this disgusting hotel that I'll never stay at again called the Moxie.
I've stayed there before, not in Boulder, but in other places. Yeah.
Everything's a QR code. So they don't know how to do, like, I wanted to see the menu at the restaurant. They're like, oh, you could just scan this. I said, I don't do that. And they were so flummoxed, like they had no idea how to handle that. And I'm like, well, you can print out a menu and deliver it to my room. I'm not sure we have the manpower for that. And what I've noticed with these new like hipster hotels is the service sucks. Everything's overpriced. The rooms get smaller, minus a giant, disgusting television / surveillance machine. But then they have all these like cutesy details.
Right.
Like they took the metal part off their hangers and put on like these leather straps, which makes them a pain in the ass to use. But I realized, and then in the shower, they had like a little thing that said deep end. And I'm like, I'd really rather you put the effort into manpower to print out a menu so that I could use your amenities instead of all this cutesy bullshit.
Your shower had a deep end, like it was a swimming pool?
It was like this much deeper than this, and they had to have like a little plate that said deep end. And I'm like, how many rooms are here? How much did you guys invest in this? But there's no one there who knows how to work a printer. But then, so I reached out to my friend Michael, who lives there, and asked for any restaurant recommendations because he owns the Tonic Bar and he's on the like high vibe, clean health food tip. So he recommended Just Be, and they actually have one in Denver, and I'd been there before. And I have such a love-hate relationship with this restaurant because they have almond flour French toast sliders with eggs and sausage. And it's like I can actually eat this and it's so delicious. But you walk into this restaurant and there's a giant computer screen and you are supposed to punch all the buttons to type in your order and they don't take cash. But here's the kicker, aside from this like transhumanist enslavement bullshit, after you type in your order, they ask you how much you want to tip the computer screen.
Right.
What the fuck? You've worked in the restaurant industry. I've worked in the restaurant industry. I'm already offended when some asshole who just takes my order and is doing their job asks for a tip. But now a computer, I'm supposed to tip the computer for me doing their work for them?
Yep. This is interesting that this is the first time you've had this tip the computer experience, but it's been going on for a while. So I have.
Wait, are there other restaurants like this where you're just interfacing with a computer and there are no human beings?
Yes, there are other restaurants like that, right? And then there's like, I remember, I think the first time Jeff came to visit here in Austin, like in 2021 when we first moved here, he was staying at the Driscoll Hotel downtown, and because at that time we were in like a tiny little place, right? So there's a restaurant there that's a chain. It's like a nationwide chain that I've been to one in Los Angeles before. It's called Eureka. It's not terrible. It's like okay, right? But the one I went to in Los Angeles was normal, right? But I guess during COVID, this one here, they turned it into this thing that like you go into the restaurant and you order from the computer, right? And you have to pay and choose your tip before you even ever sit at your table or see the person who ultimately will bring you your food. So you don't even know if you're going to get good service yet, right? And I remember him being, we were talking about it that again this time he was there. He's like, I'm still traumatized by that, right? So yes, I have like, we've all had this situation where like a place that we love starts doing that, right? And, sometimes it's like, okay, if you still ask for a regular menu and regular service, they will do it. Okay. Yeah, right. Like I understand that this was something that was introduced during, the pandemic and blah, blah, blah. And some people like it or whatever. I like it.
But wait, we have to pause because it was introduced during the pandemic when supposedly everyone has cooties. So
Correct.
now the new narrative is everyone has cooties. We're all supposed to be mashing the same disgusting, filthy screens.
Correct. You got it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's just like all the other things that don't make sense. That's how you know. It's like how you know it makes sense is that it doesn't make sense. Kind of like when Tucker Carlson was talking about asking Mike Johnson about how his new position on the surveillance or whatever. Remember, he was like, but it does make sense. It's like that kind of thing, right? Okay. By the way, Tucker Carlson announced this week that he thinks Michael Schellenberger is the best reporter in America. Right.
Oh my God, which was like so offensive because I thought Ian Carroll was, but then I remember Ian Carroll's the greatest reporter of all time in the multiverse.
Right.
So that leaves a little space for Michael Schellenberger, the world's slowest, dumbest, whatever he is, to be the best in the United States.
Okay. So back to the restaurants, but yes. Okay. So yes, this got introduced and I knew like that this was coming before the pandemic, but I didn't, because I was working in restaurants, these technologies had already started to be introduced. And I could see by like playing around inside the computer that there were all of these settings that like didn't make sense in any normal world. So I knew that the fact that those settings existed meant that we were going somewhere, but I didn't know where we were going and I didn't know how we were going to get there. And then when COVID happened, then it was like, oh, okay, it all makes sense now, right?
Yep.
So, okay. So some places, I'm like the best restaurants I go to, all the most high-end restaurants that are my favorite, they don't do any of that stuff. It's just like it used to be before, right? You have a paper menu, you pay your bill normal, right? Everything is normal at my favorite restaurants and the most high-end restaurants. So it's in this like sort of faux fine dining restaurant all the way down to like fast food that there's a spectrum of this kind of bullshit. So, the thing that is always a bridge too far for me is if there is a person standing in front of me that could take my order and they tell me I have to order for my phone, goodbye.
Honestly, it would be a total deal breaker, except I was a whore for these almond flour
Oh, I get
sliders.
it. Trust me, I'm ruled by my stomach, right? So like I will there's a lot of things I would tolerate, but like there's a restaurant we were going to all the time that was normal. Yeah, that you could order from the QR code at your table if you wanted to, but they had a person at the bar and you can sit at the bar. So when the person is behind the bar, you used to be able to order. And then I went in there one day, they're like, "Oh yeah, we can't take your order anymore. You have to order for your phone." But I'm like, "You're right here and I'm right here." Right? She was like, "Yeah, sorry, I can't." And that was just like, no, like that, just that level of stupidity or whatever it was. It was a bridge too far for me. So I go into places sometimes, and if it feels like there's a percentage of that whatever transhumanist techno-feudal enslavement bullshit that I'm like willing to like tolerate for something yummy, and then there's like when it goes 1% past what I'm willing to tolerate, it's like goodbye. Not doing it.
I balance it out by giving them a single star review on Yelp
That's what I do. Yeah.
and like going after them for pushing the transhumanist agenda and refusing to take cash. But I had a similar problem with, I mean, it's not the same, but so I ordered 15 copies of my Yes I Am book beginning of December. They arrived 2 days ago in 3 broken, busted open boxes, and every single book is destroyed. Like, there's not a single book that I could sell or use. So I call Amazon and I'm like, I just need you guys to expedite a replacement. We can't do that. The computer won't let us. And I'm like, do you think the computer won't let you?
us. Right.
It is a reasonable response to me. Like, do you feel good with the words coming out of your mouth right now? And I will say there was enough humanity left. It took a lot of phone calls and a lot of supervisors, but they handled it correctly. But I cannot stand that excuse. The computer won't let me. Erewhon used to do that when they would
Right.
overcharge me for my bajillion-dollar smoothie, even though
Right.
I was having them remove more things that they were adding. Sorry, the computer won't let me. No, that is not a reasonable response.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's always like, especially in a food service place, the computer doesn't seem to be allowing me to do it. So I'm just going to ring it up the way it works. And that makes sense with the numbers. And then I'm going to write in on the ticket what you're supposed
It's called
to.
see me. There's always a see me
Right.
option, and then we
Yes.
use our voices to have human conversations.
Yes, I know. So here's my thing with all of this, right? In order for I would love more analog businesses, more analog restaurants, more analog bars, more analog blocks in towns, more analog towns. But the people who want that are going to have to become business owners. Right?
Correct.
Just telling the your favorite places to do it is not gonna do it. It's not gonna do it. People are gonna have to become either business owners or business investors, right? Because I get it that a lot of people don't want to work in a restaurant or a bar or whatever kind of shop, or they don't have any skills, but they know people who do and who might like to open restaurants or bars or other things. And the investment is dependent upon keeping it completely analog or completely, like completely human to human or whatever it is. And that's how we're going to get there, because I know there's people out there that want to work in places like that. And there's people out there who want to eat in places like that. But so far, there's not that many people who are interested in opening or investing in or buying and putting the money towards places like that. So
I really look forward, because I know that necessity is the mother of invention. So I look forward to this being the new trend of just like analog businesses. My favorite restaurant that I go to a lot here in Santa Fe, they moved over throughout the years to those where they just give you a computer, but I've trained them.
Right.
So they know, for me, you bring me a paper check, you leave me the fuck alone, I will pay you in cash and tip you well. So now they know, and we have an arrangement that works.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a new speakeasy in town that I really want to go to. That you can either not bring your phone or you have to leave it at the door, which I really like that idea, because that eliminates any possibility of any of that stuff.
Also, like, because I've noticed this at the gym where people are on the phone in the locker room. I go into the hot tub and people are on the phone. It's like, that's a camera. That's a recording device.
Right.
I do not consent, and it is not okay to point this at me when I'm naked in the locker room or in a bikini in the hot tub. Like, when are we going to start to create rules and parameters, like basic human decency around all that nonsense?
Yeah, no, I think that's, I mean, I'm with you on, we have no disagreements here. We've agreed on everything so far. Show's over, right?
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Thank you for your generous super chats.
All right. So, all right. Well, now that we've, that's far too many agreements. Like, there's something about that just feels wrong. Right?
What should we disagree about first?
Name a restaurant that is analog only. I like, when I say analog only, what I've been to tons of like diners. There's lots of like little old school diners that still bring you like those tickets that have the red numbers printed on them. Like, there's a few of those around. But for me, like, what I consider analog only, like, I'm fine if they have a computer at their wait station that they run my shit on, but don't bring the computer to me. Don't stand in front of me with the computer. I mean, I've seen some classy, elegant ones that look just like the thing you would write your order down on. And if they're not making some big display of it, whatever they want to use, bring me a paper check. Don't have anything in the restaurant with QR codes on it. Like, paper menu, right? Like, yeah. That kind of good quality silver. These places that like also with your order at the computer screen and they give you like fucking plastic silverware or a spork or something like that. I'm like, no.
Yeah, hard no.
Yeah.
Hard no.
All right. Shall we?
Laner gave us a super chat. Our first super chat. Thank you, Laner. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Let's get to the clips, man. We have some clips. We have some issues. But like, before we start playing clips about the main issue, shall we just sort of discuss the main issue, or do we want to play clips about the issue and then discuss it?
Again, and I know you brought more clips, and this is a little bit your beat, but I loved how Russell.
Let's start with our Jewish brothers from other mothers.
Okay. They're with Jimmy out of town. I'm like, God, do they have a life? How many shows are they doing a day?
Jimmy's show probably pays well, so they're probably delighted.
That's true. Okay. Do I have screen share?
I did. I gave it to you before we started.
Damn it. I was stalling. I wanted to blame you for the delay. Okay. Let me just get to the right.
I mean, look at Russell's shirt, man. He's getting based, dude. Russell is he's coming around real quick. He's catching up, you know. He's gone from run-of-the-mill sort of progressive to complete and total like black-pilled skeptic. You know what I mean? He's moving quickly.
He is moving quickly. It's impressive. Okay, here we go. Fair use.
Here's a good example of what Schumer was talking about. Well-known cult member and possible deep state op, Tulsi Gabbard, completely reversed herself on her position on a key provision of the Patriot Act, 701. I believe it's a provision of the Patriot Act. Trump's DNI pick, Tulsi Gabbard. 702. Defends controversial foreign spy power she once opposed. She also opposed the Patriot Act. I think I'm mixing those up.
That was 701.
That was 701. Director of National Intelligence Designate, Tulsi Gabbard, is defending the use of a controversial foreign spy power she once opposed while in Congress, while still pledging to uphold Americans' Fourth Amendment right against warrantless searches of their communications. Gabbard, 43, issued a rare statement ahead of her confirmation hearing next week, promising to maintain the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act's so-called Section 702 authority if installed as the next chief of all 17 intelligence agencies. Quote, Section 702, unlike other FISA authorities, is crucial for gathering foreign intelligence on non-U.S. persons abroad, she said. This unique capability cannot be replicated and must be safeguarded to protect our nation while ensuring the civil liberties of Americans. Wow, sounds like a completely different person. As she often does. as she often does. Really depends on the cycles of the moon, which Tulsi you get. My prior concerns about FISA were based on insufficient protections for civil liberties, particularly regarding the FBI's misuse of warrantless search powers on American citizens, Gabbard added in her statement, which was first reported by Punchbowl News. Quote, significant FISA reforms have been enacted since my time in Congress to address these issues. If confirmed as DNI, I will uphold Americans' Fourth Amendment rights while maintaining vital national security tools like Section 702 to ensure the safety and freedom of the American people. War is peace. Ignorance is strength. Freedom is slavery. One Republican aide snarked to the Post that Gabbard's about face sounds like a hostage statement as she prepares to be grilled by security-minded Senate lawmakers.
All right, I feel like that's enough of an intro for us to pick it up.
Yeah, maybe she's friends with Charles Eisenstein. All right.
Of course. She was in the cabin next door to him on the boat.
Right. Right. Okay. So obviously, like, this has been the big news this week is that Tulsi Gabbard, it's weird because there's a conflation of a lot of things here that makes it sound like one thing might be related to or because of another, rather than that the things are just happening. And I'm not sure how this all is, but that basically something that she has spoken out against her entire not her entire time in Congress or her entire public career, but for like a long time. Like when she was in Congress, she introduced a bill with Thomas Massie to restrict all of those powers and whatnot, right? So suddenly something that she thought was the biggest threat to Americans' freedom, now she is for, which is, Tulsi, at this point, we've come to expect massive flip-flopping without explanation from Tulsi. But I think we have gotten to a point that is far worse than any place she's ever been before, because now she's just lying, right? Like with all of the other things, there's this, weird sort of parallel universe where she could be just evolving or changing her mind or blah, blah, blah. But now she's lying because she said that since her time in Congress, they have made changes to 702 that would further protect the privacy of Americans. And that is not true, because they tried to do that. And Mike Johnson, who used to also say the same thing that Tulsi said, you can go back and listen to him talking about that when he was on Glenn Greenwald's show, how concerned he was about 702 and the invasion of Americans' privacy, right? Then flip-flopped and not only allowed FISA to be reauthorized, but allowed a version that didn't do anything to alter 702. And in fact, I think in some ways made it worse. And the explanation that he gave to Tucker Carlson was that, or not to Tucker Carlson, the explanation that he gave to someone who questioned him on the Hill one day, and then I guess Tucker talks about having talked with him off the record afterwards, was basically like, I went to the skiff and they showed me some stuff, and then I saw that, yeah, it's very important and it makes sense, right? Kind of thing. Now, Mike Johnson is actually kind of like Tulsi Gabbard. Both have a very mysterious past that has to do with membership in, unusual iterations of religions, and not a very linear paper trail in terms of I think there was a weird article that came out several months back about Mike Johnson doesn't have a bank account, and Mike Johnson doesn't have a financial history that you can track, and there's no evidence that Mike Johnson has ever had a job, and weird stuff like that, right? Which tells me with both of these people, there's this also controversy going on right now that even though she has caved, or whatever is how they're presenting it, some people saying caved or made a hostage statement, that the Democrats still don't want her because there was a paperwork issue. They're still trying to do a background check. This person has a security clearance for being in the military, right? What the fuck are you talking about? She's been in Congress. She's already had all of this stuff done.
Right.
So what I see here with both Mike Johnson and Tulsi Gabbard at this point is that these are both intelligence operatives that are so many layers deep in terms of who they're working for and what cover they're under and all of that kind of stuff, that that even some people probably there's two things going on, right? They're making a fake kerfuffle, two possibilities. They're making a fake kerfuffle, right, about this so that everybody will believe that Tulsi is gonna, the second coming of Mother Teresa or whatever it is, if she gets in. That's one possibility. Or the other possibility is that there's things that are going to happen that then later they can blame on Tulsi because she's an Assad lover or a Putin puppet or whatever it is, and they're making this fake rigmarole. But also, I think it's entirely possible that there are some people in Congress, because there's hundreds of people in Congress, and not all of them have security clearances at in different levels, that some people are not as read in on who and what Tulsi actually is, and so there's conflicting narratives about what she's there to do and how we're supposed to act about it. So I think there's like multiple possible things going on simultaneously. But at this point, she is a liar. We cannot even give her the goodwill of being like, oh, poor MK Ultra mind control victim who doesn't know her ass from her elbow. No, she's lying.
Correct. And I had been on the fence and trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Yes, she's lying. And yes, I'm sure there are people who aren't read in, but it feels to me like the exact same play as we saw with RFK. All of this very loud legacy media hullabaloo to make it seem like she's this edgy outsider, which is even more ridiculous with Tulsi than it was with RFK, because she is an elected member. Wasn't she head of the DNC?
Right. She was the vice chair of the DNC. Right.
She's served in the military. Like, all of this is so fake. Like, much ado about less than nothing. That just shows that she's so the establishment pick through and through.
And remember, just weeks before the election, she was upset because she was being spied on and followed.
That was fake. That was fucking fake.
Everything is fake. No, everything is fake. Everything is fake. Particularly with Mike Johnson and Tulsi, these are the two people who have had the most embarrassing flip-flop, accompanied by lies, about this issue. And they both have this sort of similar shady background, and both of them have this weird thing where they're like super religious, but also concerned about the kind of civil liberties that usually people who are not religious are usually more concerned about than people who are religious. This be telling me that they both be from some cults that have ties to government, and which they've been groomed since the time that they were young to be doing this. The only way, I'm not saying there's any world in which what they're saying is the truth and it makes sense, but like both of them seem to have like gone to the skiff and then changed their mind or something like that, right? Now, unless the skiff in this case is have you seen the Christopher Nolan movie Tenet?
No.
Okay. Well, like there's this sort of area that they have sort of set up where you turnstile to go into it, and when you go into it's like this mixed zone, like a neutral area. But when you cross over, you're now in a reality where time is going the other direction, right? And so what everything, you have to be prepared, like air hits your lungs differently. So if you're from this side and you go over to this side, you got to wear like a certain kind of breathing mask. There's all this kind of stuff, right? But what it allows you to do is like, based on what's happened in the place where it's already happened, what's about to happen on the other side or whatever it is. So you can kind of get out in front of it, right? This sort of, they call these temporal pincer movements, right? Mm-hmm. So unless the skiff.
I feel like that was the name of one of our shows at one point.
Probably, right?
Okay.
So unless the skiff at this point has become the turnstile into the timeline that runs in the opposite direction, and they're taking people there and being like, look, this is what we're dealing with, there's like no reality under which I have any grace for these fucking fools.
No, none. And the only place where I'm going to disagree is you said it's embarrassing. It would be embarrassing if they had a shred of dignity, self-awareness, or integrity. And at this point, I don't think that they have those things.
I do have to say, in some of the video that I was watching of Tulsi, like what the video they were showing of her going around talking to the different senators and then talking to the media about having changed her mind, she did look a little bit less confident than she usually looks. She does look a little rattled, in my opinion. She just didn't look quite as stately. And I don't know what the reason for that is, right? She looked like she was being walked around like a dog.
So maybe this is a hostage situation.
I mean, at any moment, somebody is entitled to wake up and be like, this isn't what I signed up for, right? But then you have to do something. You don't just keep doing it. And this idea, I have one clip related to this. And my clip is of John Kiriakou. So remember, John Kiriakou is the CIA whistleblower who did time because he was not going along with it. And he also was the one who ripped Andrew Bustamante,
I loved that interview.
a new asshole when they were on the Danny Jones podcast together. So we're in this one of these situations where it's like a reverse universe, which is also the idea of Tenet here. Because I'm going to have to wholeheartedly disagree with what John Kiriakou is about to do here, and it's kind of disappointing, right? And I don't know if this is naivete or if this is like, once a slimy CIA operative, always on some level a slimy CIA operative. But would you like to hear what he had to say about it?
Yes, I would love it.
All right, let's see. Oh, I have the wrong window open. Hold on a second. Let me get the right window open. What is this? Okay, let's do that. Let's go. Jeff backed up and fixed everything, like updated everything on my computer so everything looks funny. Okay, here we go. Share sound, audio, video. Here we go. Fair use.
Pleasure. So first, let's talk about Tulsi. We'll get to John Radcliffe in a second here. I think most of I think you rightly point out, most of the attention has been on Tulsi. She's been very outspoken, of course, against Section 702 all her time in Congress. Really against spying on Americans. And by the way, she was targeted by the NSA. It's an unbelievable sort of turn of events here that she would be heading up the DNI. When you heard this sort of flip-flop, what was your immediate response to that?
My immediate response was one of disappointment, but I happened to be with a couple of friends of mine who are involved in the Trump transition team when I heard this news. And they said, wait a minute, let's think about this for a second. Tulsi's one of only 2, possibly 3 Trump appointees who may be in some trouble in the Senate, the others being Bobby Kennedy and perhaps Pete Hegseth. She may have done this. She may have carried out this flip-flop on 702 just to placate Republican senators who otherwise would be very happy to vote in favor of her confirmation. And then that would allow her to flip back. And now, that would be a little bit it would be a little bit hypocritical, but this is Washington and people do what they need to do in order to save their careers and their nominations. I hope that that's the case because Tulsi has been one of the very few voices in government in either party to support the liberty and constitutional freedoms of Americans that have been guaranteed to us in the Constitution. Remember, not only was it illegal to spy on Americans until Barack Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, thus allowing NSA to spy on Americans, but it's actually a part of NSA's charter that it is forbidden from spying on Americans. We just pretend that that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm hoping that this was just kind of a cynical move to placate some Republican senators until after the vote, and then we'll see what happens when 702 actually comes back up for reauthorization.
So he hopes she's lying.
So he's normalizing
Correct.
And rationalizing this hypocritical lying and flip-flopping to just get her ass into office. He's on the payroll again. He probably was the whole time. He probably didn't go to prison. He went to Epstein's Island with Diddy and everyone else.
You're pilot.
Sorry that my computer just is weird. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I said a lot. I finished.
No, I heard everything except just keep going. I heard everything. I just had to turn that off. Yeah.
I came to the end of my thought.
Okay. So yeah, like I don't like this is where the flexibility of morals that is required to ever have worked in the CIA.
Right.
Like, even though I do believe people are capable of having come to Jesus moments or reforming or whatever it is, right? But there's some deep-seated, whether you arrived there with those tendencies or whether those tendencies were, really like instilled in you there or exacerbated there, some of those habits die hard. And that right there was gross, right? For all the things he's done that I appreciate, he basically is like, I hope she's lying. You and I are mad because she lied. And he's sitting here going, I hope she's lying. And, Grant, I think about this sometimes because some people are like, well, politics is a dirty game, so you need people to lie in ways that are going to benefit the people. I'm like, no. And this is why, for me, there can't be government, right? Because we're in this scenario where it seems impossible for the truth tellers to rise to power or whatever it is. And so then you get in this situation where people are recommending the noble lies. And to me, that's super gross. Remember when all of the QAnon people would talk about how JFK Jr. was really still alive and he was going to swoop in and save the day and either become president or help Donald Trump return to office?
Yes.
And I kept saying, I'm like, and why would you guys be okay with that? And then we would be talking about a person who's been lying for the last 20 years about where they have been. And you're pinning your hopes for saving the country or saving the world or whatever the fuck you think he's saving on that. And you're going to be okay with that. And you're going to applaud that. Like, I had a huge problem with that. Whenever I would bring that up, people would just roll right over that. They would never respond to the statement. Right? Like,
of course, because this is all part of a deliberate plan to demoralize, to normalize this like disgusting behavior.
Yeah. I mean, the things that I have done a fair number of things in my life that I have shame for, that I'm ashamed of, right? I don't have regrets because at this point, my experiences have made me who I am, and I wouldn't be here probably doing this without those experiences, but I certainly still have shame from some of them. And, if I was doing life all over again, I wouldn't do them again, right? And the things that bring me the most amount of shame are lying. Like, the lying makes me feel worse than any other, like, dumb thing I did that was bad. The lying, when somebody looks you in the face and you say a thing that isn't true, right? Like, that's the things that I still feel the most shame about, right? And so
that's because you're a human being with like self-reflection and a heart and a soul, and whatever we're dealing with, they're not in that same category.
Yeah.
They're just scumbags.
Yeah, so that was disappointing.
I have a clip that speaks directly to what you're saying, if I may. I wasn't planning on this order, but it's just so on the nose.
Let's do it.
Are you cool with that?
I'm cool with it.
Okay. Fair use. OG.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Corporate people. And the idea is that politicians elected will cease to be. And the foundation of the whole conspiracy is the manipulation of human perception. Whole conspiracy is founded on that. It's a stadium in which it's all played out. Manipulating the way people think so they will think and behave in a way that suits your agenda. And so what we've been seeing, and I say this is systematic, we've been seeing people of deeply moronic people being put into positions of political power all over the world. You saw it massively during COVID. So you've got people like Trudeau in Canada and people like him. And of course, you've had Biden in the United States, who was blatantly not compos mentis. And the idea is that you destroy people's confidence in the political system. We're seeing this in Britain with Keir Starmer. He's come in, he's talked about change. That's always the way that tyrants and liars sell themselves. They don't actually say what the change is going to be. And things that he said he would do and things he said he wouldn't do, well, he's doing the opposite, immediately gets to power. So in Britain now, as a result, you've got an enormous pushback and loss of faith in the political system. That's the idea, because they want rid of politicians running the show with any vestige of public involvement.
So he goes on to say that it's all part of the plan, and this is part of why Trump is bringing in Elon and Vivek to replace politicians with AI.
100%. This is going to be Palantirs, profiling, predictive policing, all that stuff, right? Like, right? Yeah, for sure. I love the term deeply moronic. I think we may have found it.
No, it's like salve to my soul to hear him say shit like that.
Yep. All right. What else you got?
All right. So I have a few.
Finishing up on Tulsi. One last thing.
Okay.
I'm not going to play anything from these videos, but I felt like I have 2 screenshots from this one guy's 2 different videos on Tulsi that I think if a person just needed 2 images to let them know like what we're dealing with and why it's a no, it should have always been a no. The fact that I ever was like, oh, Tulsi. I mean, it was a long time ago, but Jesus Christ, right? Here we go. So image 1.
Why is she doing that?
Right? Image 1.
Have you ever done that? Honestly, have you ever posed for a picture with your hands like this or done this at any point in your life ever?
The only thing I can think of is like if there was like some little, the things you do in your little like itsy bitsy spider, if there was like some song with hand movements that did that, right?
But that was like this.
Okay, but I mean there was many songs that had those kinds of things. That would be the only time I can think of it, right? So there's that. So that was photo 1. And then photo 2, and I think this one is, probably even worse than photo 1. Photo 2.
Ew!
Right? She's
What
intelligent.
the
I want
fuck?
someone like her leading me, said no critical thinker ever.
Oh, I love the caption.
Totally. It's my favorite, right?
That is so good.
Yeah. So anyhow, I thought I'd inject that little bit of humor into the pot here. All right, what you got?
Okay, so I'm seeing different weaves here. So I'm going to go back to David Icke, and then he's going to take us into Russell, and then we're going to go back to Icke.
All
This
right.
is the oh, wait, I have to share the screen. I get to share the screen.
You get to. It's your honor to share the screen.
My honor. Okay. This was kind of tough because I clipped it while it was live, so all the time codes were transposed.
Yeah.
But I worked it out. I did math. Just for you and our tribe. P.S. Super chats are helpful for supporting me in doing math. Okay, here we go. Fair use. If it works.
Bad for Jewish people.
Hello, everyone. This is Joe Kudla, founder and CEO of Viori. And today I'm going to walk you through some of the
Jewish people. I mean, Jewish people in Israel, it already is. And, what we're seeing, this is another aspect of the Trump era. It's very interesting that we've come along this road and got to this point, because what you may have noticed is that Christianity has become more and more prominent in the alternative media and more prominent in the whole Trump arena. And okay, I remember going to America in about 1996 to talk about these things to next to nobody. I mean, no one was interested in those days. I was talking to like 5 people here and 10 people there. And it was clear in those days that it was was largely those of the Christian belief system that could see that there was a conspiracy going on, and they related it to their biblical beliefs. But what we're seeing now is a real advancement of that, where Christianity is becoming real central to the whole thing. And why is that happening? Because this Sabbatean grouping within the global cult is seeking to elicit support from Christians, especially Christian Zionists, but Christians in general, for their agenda by making it appear that biblical prophecies are happening because God is making them happen, when actually they are making them happen. And so
it was so gratifying to hear him talk about the Christian conspiracy that we've been talking about for years.
It's so crazy. I remember when I first got into conspiracies, I was like, wow, there's a lot of Christian people here, but they were like John Birchers and like completely different than this thing that is now. The way it's become this like reform Hollywood comedian, like whatever it is, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's this. When I was like, I was like, when I first discovered that the truth community or the conspiracy community or whatever was full of a lot of Christian people, I was a little not taken. I don't know that I wasn't surprised, but it was like, okay, like I didn't expect that, but this is what it is, right? But it felt like that was really who those people were. It
didn't feel fake, like fashion.
I didn't, like right? Yes, right, exactly. It felt kind of like, and again, I say this with no malice or anything like that. Like gymnastics felt like that to me when I was younger. Like, damn, there's a lot of religious people here. I hope one day they grow out of it, right? Like that was kind of how it felt like when I first came to the conspiracy community, right? So it is shocking to see that like this other weird iteration of it is, sort of become the end point. But
it's like a standard issue checkbox at this point. Like living in LA, which is the birthplace of a lot of trends, cultural trends. I remember when it was like people got into, say, a vegan diet or master cleansing, and then they got into Ashtanga yoga, and then they did a few ayahuasca ceremonies, right. And then they started wearing beads, and like then they grew long beards and wearing hats. Like you saw the progression. Yeah. Now this Christian conversion is the same thing. One of these LA hipsters, right. Who I knew from LA, drank the Kool-Aid. He reached out like, I know you're going to think this is crazy, but you really need to vote for Trump and RFK. And I'm like, I don't know what rock you've been living under, like that you think this is all revelation. And then like 2 weeks later, he was posting on Instagram, like, I'm a Christian, I've been baptized. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And it's like, it's the same thing as like skinny jeans or
right, yes.
soy lattes.
Right, yes. Or my favorite is like, you can always tell when someone's just been to Burning Man for the first time because they have a necklace with a little bit of sand in a bottle on it. It's like that. And then they're wearing like cut off jean shorts with suspenders and a top hat and like, or a pirate outfit or something like that, right?
100%. Okay, so then this leads us into, this is just pure beauty. Hang on, I'm just queuing it up and then I'll share the screen. It's like, wow, they have no shame, like none whatsoever. So here we go, fair use. Here we go.
Now that we are tethered potentially to continual self, we are going to have to, I believe, learn new ways of understanding Scripture and new ways of receiving Him. Because as the word was written in the language of its time, anticipating all time, for surely He exists beyond time and beyond space and outside of the senses. The ultimate reality is beyond the conditions of our reality as we appreciate and receive it. We, as inhabitants of this realm, are going to have to learn how to operate within technology. Otherwise, that technology, I reckon it could become pretty Luciferian. It could become a kind of false light. Now that we are tethered.
He's been Christian for like 5 minutes
But you can see now how for his whole career he's been used to introduce the new op and make it seem like this divine inspiration that he downloaded from the heavens, and right, like he did when he first started talking about, you know, conspiracies or whatever. Like, well, first it was like the yoga spirituality and the health and the veganism, and then it was conspiracies, and now it's this, and like, right, he has a knack for stringing the words together in a way that just sounds like it's on high from the mountain above the, you know.
Correct. The comments were amazing. Like, sit down, son. Like, you literally just converted, and now you're telling us we have to reimagine scripture to fit into the transhumanist agenda because you're a fucking movie star.
He did the same thing with all the conspiratorial stuff.
Of course.
Yeah. Yep. All right, back to David Icke.
Okay, well, you know what? It had me thinking, I'm just going to kind of be all over the place.
Okay.
Because that feels like a really good setup for the PBD on Bannon and Musk.
Let's hear it.
We're just going to go kind of all over because there's a lot of Musk for me today. Okay, so going back, do you watch PBD?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I don't watch like every episode or anything like that, but I'd say like 1 or 2 shows a month, maybe.
It's so amazing how like his staff are all sycophants and they're all like kind of vying for his approval during the show.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to like nudge. Here we go. Okay, so we have a few from this one.
Okay.
Because I want to get all of his sycophants' take.
Okay.
So here we go. Fair use.
What goes on in the United States? According to a WAPO translation of Musk's interview with Corley de la Sera, Bannon, a controversial figure whose influence over Trump has been ebbed and flowed for years, says he would do anything to keep Musk off the White House and is actively working on a strategy to limit his influence over Trump, telling the paper Musk's ideas are really about the implementation of techno-feudalism on a global scale. Tom.
So
we don't care what Tom says, but this is why I love Bannon, because he's calling it out. Maybe it's another psyop, maybe it's theater.
Look at the part up top. Bannon said Musk should go back to South Africa, where he is from, asking why do we have South Africans, the most racist people on earth, white South Africans, making comments at all on what goes on in the United States, right? Peter Thiel also grew up in South Africa, right? I mean, this is something that's come up over and over in the years with people I've done shows with, is that there's so many threads of conspiracy that lead back to South Africa, right? And, you know, including things like in my own family. My dad spent a number of years living there. My sister, you know, spent a lot of time there. There's a lot of interesting things about South Africa, for sure, both when we're talking about like geopolitics and, you know, sort of cultural issues, but also when we're getting more into like metaphysical and archaeological and like all of that kind of stuff. Like, all roads seem to lead to South Africa. In fact, it was Crossroads, that was the program that my dad went into, right? That led him to basically ultimately Africa when he got turned down by the CIA. Right?
Crossroads was the junior high I went to and got kicked out of.
Right? So it was a project, right? So my dad like went for an interview with the CIA or something like that, and when I asked him, I'm like, are you sure you never had any brushes with intelligence? He's like, no, I interviewed for the CIA, they turned me down. He's like, and right after that, I got invited to Project Crossroads Africa or whatever it was, and I'm like, Dad, that's how it works, right?
Was there any self-awareness where he was like, oh,
well,
I guess I did.
The same, like 3 or 4 different versions of the same kind of conversation about different things that have happened in his life, my life, his mother's life, my sister's life, now that he recognizes that, oh, you say that every time when one of these things come up. So like he can understand there's a pattern there, whether he agrees with it or not, he sees the pattern.
Okay, that's something.
Yeah.
Okay, so returning to the PBD crew. Next, I don't know their names, but I don't think it matters. No offense. Okay, fair use.
I think, and I like Steve Bannon. I know he's just trying to stir the pot, but
I do too, actually.
Elon Musk going back to South Africa, that's anti-American. The guy's American. He has done so much for America, for hiring thousands of Americans. He's getting us out into space, free speech. He lost money to put us on X. And I mean, do I agree with everything that Musk says? No, Pat. I think, you never know what a true person's intentions are. We'll see in the long run. But this whole cheap anti-immigrant, dude, the guy is an American citizen. Wasn't he he was a Canadian citizen as well, Tom?
South African.
No, he was a Canadian. I think he was. Can you check that, Rob? Was he a Canadian citizen as well? We're the land of opportunity. Okay, these people have busted their asses. They're doing their thing. It's like I see a little jealousy. I see a little anger. I'm all about, everybody out there knows, I'm America first, but this is a cheap ass shot. And it's like, we've been saying it, that the Democrats want to separate us and have us all fighting.
Okay, so just again, we see the Musk sycophant thing, which I'll take us back to Ike if we have time, where he talks about that. But I had Mitch, the orgone donor, on my podcast yesterday.
Awesome. I love Mitch.
He was great because he was opining on the fires, and I'm like, let's have a real conversation about this. And I realized I was slow to figure this out, but the whole point of the satellites is to create the frequency fence to enslave us. It's not like the surveillance thing is like an extra bonus. And it's certainly not to give everyone free Wi-Fi access. It's to set up this weaponized network.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're making it so there won't be an inch of the planet that doesn't get Wi-Fi. Some places when I go away from the Wi-Fi, I don't want Wi-Fi. Right. I don't want internet or whatever, right? I don't want it. They're, giving internet to the tribes in the Amazon that haven't ever seen another person before and whatever. It's crazy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So last one from this one, 435. Okay, here we go. Fair use.
Africa, and there's a history of racism and apartheid in South Africa. Okay, that's one thing. He said the following: Elon Musk is a truly evil guy, a very bad guy. I made it my personal thing to take this guy down. All right. You think you're taking Elon Musk down, the richest man in the world? You just got out of jail. Choose your enemy.
We're going to listen to more. Is this true? I keep hearing this, that he's the richest man in the world. I'm assuming the richest man in the world is someone whose name we don't actually know,
correct,
who's pulling everyone's strings.
Of the sham show that they like to, the sort of, the layer of the cake that they want us to believe that is the one we exist in, right? That's the whole cake, right? We're in some little menial part where, it's he's not exactly the richest people. Well, here's the thing. He probably is the richest person in the world in terms of money, because I think the people more powerful than him don't give two fucks about money. They don't need money, right? Where the way that they move around and what they're into, the currency is something other than papers with pyramids on it, right? Or bitcoins or whatever it is. So in terms of the way we understand people hoarding wealth and assets and stuff like that. Right, he probably is, and that don't come from a sort of known bloodline family, although I do believe he probably is from some kind of bloodline that is just not publicly known. So he may be a representative of a bloodline family. But yeah, I mean, they exist as a front or a cover story. They exist to make people think that that's what power is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so picking it back up.
Enemies wisely. This is what you want to do. This is what you want to choose. This is punching up. I get it. I said in a couple podcasts ago, MAGA 1.0 versus MAGA 2.0. Sort of the nationalists, the populists, the anti-immigrant, anti-trade, those types of pieces versus, look, call it what you will. Elon Musk is a globalist. He has business all over the world. There is some conversation to be had about his relationship with China. Steve Bannon basically says he's owned by China in so many words. But the other thing that Steve Bannon said the other day was very interesting is, converts, we want converts. We want people to convert. We want people to come to the party. But you sit in the back of the room and I look at that comment all right, you think that Elon Musk, who just gave how much money? $250 million to the Trump campaign, is going to sit in the back of the room buddy, he's driving shotgun at this point. So at the end of the day, this MAGA 1.0 versus
again, the normalization of this demoralized, debased corruption, and like it's all a-okay. Bannon just has to get on board that Musk bought his way into the party and is now driving the ship because he has the most money. It's fucking disgusting.
Yep. But that's all those Patrick Bet David sycophants. That's all they care about. The reason that they're sycophants for Patrick is because of how much money Patrick has made, possibly scamming people. There was a fucking scandal a couple of weeks ago that didn't get enough attention, right? That his whole business is some kind of like pyramid scheme or something like that, right? You know, so it reminds me, his whole crew reminds me of like shoe salesmen or car salesman, right? And there's like the Mac Daddy who like, you know, always makes the most sales and or you know, whatever, and they're all sort of vying to be the one that earns the most commission for themselves, but also the most money for the owner of the dealership, so that you know, they get all the, you know, they get all the opportunities and you know, get their name on the billboard sometime or whatever it is. That's what it feels like. It feels. They also remind me of like, you know, when you're like at the mall, like Beverly Center, Topanga Plaza, and there's like, sometimes they're Israeli, sometimes they're Middle Eastern, the guys who are like trying to give you like the samples of like the lotion.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like and they'll just say anything to get you to fucking take their sample.
Anything.
That's what it fucking reminds me of. They remind me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Totally. And I appreciated the parallel between the back of the room and Russell Brand. I don't think he's even been Christian for a full year, and he's telling us we have to adapt scripture. Like, what the fuck?
Well, remember, Mickey told us those are better stories. The people who just woke up yesterday are better leaders than everybody else because their story is more prescient and more relatable and blah, 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 right?
Someone reached out to me on Instagram, saying like JP Sears and Mickey Willis have teamed up on this new supplement, and we know that you're really into health, so we'd love to send you a free sample to try. And my response was just like, why would you reach out to me specifically? And I haven't heard back. Like,
you should ask
why would I want to?
If it comes from the wellness company.
I mean, I am. In my mind, I think 1,000%. I've not investigated it, but why would I be interested in taking a supplement that a mediocre comedian and an activist filmmaker are partnering up on? What the fuck do they have to do with optimal health on any level?
Well, I mean, this is about getting the same elements in people's bodies, because if you know that like everybody who subscribes to like this version of reality has this stuff inside their body, then you can target them better with your, you know, frequency weapons.
It's like, how stupid do you think I am?
Right. All right, next one. You got more? Or you done?
I can go back to more David Icke, which is just more on Elon being a transhumanist, or we can go to Zuckertard on Joe Rogan.
Oh, we haven't given that any attention yet. Let's do that.
Did you listen?
I made it through about 14 minutes of it, and I was like, I just can't.
So high level, a great drinking game for that podcast is every time Zuckerberg says the word journey. Okay. Because he's on a journey. He's on a journey to learn. He's on a journey of a libertarian. He's on a jujitsu journey. Right. He's on, everything's a journey.
Right. His hair's on a journey. His hair's on a journey. He has a new necklace. He got that on his journey, right? Like,
he also has a new neck. They were talking about the size of his neck. I will say his human coaches are doing a good job. This is the most human I've seen him behave. Like, he's starting to, it took several years, decades for him to pretend to be human, but he did a way better job on this than I had.
My guess would be, so a couple of things. Like, I still, like, no matter if he looks like an absolute android or like they're going for like the surfer jujitsu android, he's so strange to look at. His face, I've just never seen anyone in real life that looks like that. Right? It's like such an unusual look that like it's hard to get my head around. But my guess would be that if the amount of physical activity he's doing has embodied him to a certain point that he was not before, and that is making his sort of movements and his gestures and therefore his behavior seem more human.
Yes, and but even his affect and his personality, like he's clearly done some psychedelics,
right?
And they are having a positive effect. And this is all alleged. I'm filling in the blanks. And we talked about this yesterday with like what this conversation could portend is like me going to jail for what I just said, right? And like stricter, since they're not having fact checkers anymore,
right?
And like being more open to libel. So everything I'm saying is allegedly is entertainment.
Everything is entertainment. This is an entertainment channel. Yes.
Okay, so let me cue up the first one. Joe was so extra disgusting on this one. It was very much like the version of Joe that showed up to bully Terrence, whatever his name is, with Eric Weinstein.
Yeah.
That is the version of Joe that we got. Okay, so fair use. We're just going to listen. Here we go.
Forget about how many overall, like how many people use it regularly.
It's 3.2 billion people use one of our services every day.
That's
it's wild.
More than a third of the planet. That's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's
almost half of Earth.
Well, on a monthly basis, it is probably half. Of Earth. But
so I want to say that though there's a lot of like hypercritical people that are conspiracy theorists and think that everybody's a part of some cabal to control them. I want you to understand that whether it's YouTube or all these, whatever place that you think is doing something that's awful, it's good that you speak because this is how things get changed and this is how people find out that people are upset about content moderation and censorship. But moderating at scale is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
What we were talking the other day about the number of videos that go up every hour on YouTube, and it's bananas. It's bananas. That's like to try to get a human being that is reasonable, logical, and objective that's going to analyze every video. It's virtually impossible. It's not possible. So you got to use a bunch of tools. You're going to get a bunch of things wrong. And then you have also people reporting things. And how much is that going to affect things? You could have mass reporting because you have bad actors. You have some corporation that decides we're going to attack this video because it's bad for us, get it taken down. There's so much going on. I want to put that in people's heads before we go on. Like, understand the kind of numbers that we're talking about here. Now understand you have the pandemic, and then you have the administration that's doing something where I think they crossed the line, where it gets really weird, where they're saying what you were saying. They were trying to get you to take down vaccine side effects, which is just.
Why does Joe need to argue Zuckerberg's point for him? Why does he, after deriding conspiracy theorists, which he used to be, need us to understand? Like, he doesn't normally, unless it's one of these setups, and we've seen plenty of the setups, but like do his guesswork for them of mind controlling the audience into letting us know why we need to pay attention because Joe's telling us to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just there are laws about what is illegal. And if somebody does something illegal, right, then there's laws to deal with that. We don't need some other layer to be controlled by nerds or comedians about, right. It's crazy. It's like someone reporting you for not wearing your seatbelt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay, so the other two, they're pretty standard as to like what.
Hopefully, that was interesting that you played the Spotify version or whatever that was, and there's just a little video on the side. Maybe since it's not the YouTube version, maybe that will save us from demonetization.
You know what? I don't even have to play the other clips. I could just reiterate if it's going to endanger us. One thing that annoys me is I pay for Spotify Premium, and I still get ads on Rogan.
It's all these services now are like that you used to yet you paid for them, so you didn't have to have ads. Like a lot of them had things, well, you can watch for free, but it will have ads, or you can pay and not have ads. Now it's like, oh, well, you're still going to have some ads unless you want to pay more, right? If you want to pay more, then you.
Yep.
Right. It's kind of like now you have to pay extra to put your suitcase on the airplane, and to.
Yeah. So given that we've had issues with Joe Rogan in the past, I don't think it's worth it to play them. So I'm just going to give us the overview.
Okay.
So first of all, Zuckerberg lies and said they never took down factual COVID information. So that's lie number one.
Right.
Then you have Joe explaining to Zuckerberg and all of us the danger of anonymous accounts. And like, he does think that people should be able to say things anonymously, but then you run the risk of like a troll farm with hundreds of accounts putting out the same Russian disinformation, and we can't have that. So again, I know our audience already knows this, but we see the seeping in of like, we can't have anonymous accounts, we can't have anonymous accounts, but he's saying we need anonymous accounts, but here's why we can't have them. And then my favorite part of this is Joe is just kissing his ass so hardcore and like selling his own shtick for Zuck. But he's going off on like how X is the greatest thing because you had all these legacy media outlets who were lying to us. And then Elon, our Lord and Savior, bought X. And now all of a sudden, everyone is free to say whatever they want. And all these legacy media lies are being busted. And that's why Trump won the election. And you can see Zuckerberg, who owns the competing social media, like, Joe, you went off the rails. Like, I'm not okay with you, like, puffing up Elon to this extent. And he's like, well, I don't know if we could really, claim causality from that. And like, he just crossed a line that Zuckerberg, like, couldn't go there with X. That was kind of interesting.
Was it in this? So most of those things you've talked about were parts that I saw. I didn't see that last part, but was it in this episode or was it some other episode of Joe Rogan that happened in the last few weeks where someone was talking about like computers doing something that is not how humans behave? And he's like, have you met Lex Fridman?
I didn't hear that in this one, but I did skip around when they were talking about like martial arts and archery.
Yeah, so I didn't hear the martial arts and archery part, so I don't know where it was. It might have been in a different episode, but I thought it was funny that Joe Rogan basically hat tipped to our Lex Fridman ideas, right? So, okay, anything else on Zucker?
That's it for Zucker. I can play I have 2 David Icke talking about Elon as a transhumanist if we need it, or I can be done.
Up to you. I have one more clip. Let's do my one more clip and let's go to the chat room. Okay. So remember earlier I referenced the Danny Jones podcast with John Kiriakou and Andrew Bustamante and how much I liked Kiriakou in that and how much I disliked what he said today. And we all know how much I disliked Bustamante in that interview and how I generally don't have a lot of I don't know. I'm amused by him on some levels, but generally I'm not impressed. But today I have a clip where he's saying something that I was like, wow, all right. This doesn't make me a Bustamante fan. But when he says something that resonates as true to me, it's shocking as it is, I'm going to give him the time to say that here, but also check out his demeanor while he is saying this. And then I'll have something to say about it afterwards. Oops, I did the wrong thing here. Let me bring up my Bustamante clip here. Oh, this is the wrong one. What's going on? Where is it? There it is. Okay, here we go. Fair use.
Back when Nikola Tesla was experimenting with a way to create energy and transfer it across large.
Oh, this also relates to what we talked about at the end of the last show about your friend's papers from her mom and the underground installation in the Harper. Yes. Yeah, it connects a lot of things. Here we go.
Distances. It was always with an eye towards having it be free and accessible by all people. Some of the places, interestingly enough, some of the places where there are large amounts of UFO and UAP sightings are actually also the same locations where Nikola Tesla had scoped them out as a transfer point for free energy.
Really?
Because of the geology in those locations. What I have come to confidently land on is that there is absolutely a connection between the geology of a location and the energetics of that location and how they impact UFOs and UAPs. And let me just give you a real quick example. There are parts of the country where the soil underground, the geological conditions underground, are heavy in metals like iron ore or copper ore and quartz, which is a rock. Most of us know what quartz is, right? When those two conditions exist, a heavy metal ore paired with quartz, you're essentially creating a scenario in which the molten core of the Earth can charge an artificial battery or a natural battery. Because the metal matched with the quartz creates a type of reaction where the energy from the core of the Earth is stored in the quartz and then it's released to the surface through the quartz, not through the actual core of the Earth. In areas that don't have a layer of quartz like that, energy is free flowing. But in areas where there is a heavy focus or a heavy concentration of quartz, that battery power charges, and then you actually see higher electromagnetic energy fields.
Okay.
Right? Sedona, Arizona, someplace we were talking about recently. There's a fantastic report online. If you just do a quick Google search for Sedona or look for Sedona, Arizona magnetic anomalies, right? Or U.S. Geological Survey, USGS, Sedona, Arizona magnetic anomalies. Look up that and you're going to come across a report from 2005 that the U.S. Geological Service did that talks all about how the ground underneath the city of Sedona is unique, specifically because of this ability to capture and store energy from the core of the Earth. It's a fascinating thing. Sedona, Arizona is also one of those areas where people report seeing lots of strange UFOs, sightings of things they can't explain, energy vortexes that, change and alter their psychology and their mental state. I mean, and could it all be related to the energy that's happening underground? I would say yes, it absolutely could be related. It even may be like high probability, medium confidence that it's related to the energy underground. Because it just, all of those things scientifically, they all make sense. They all match up. The difference that we have in a place like Sedona versus other parts of Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, is that we don't know if those areas have the same kind of magnetic geology like we see in Sedona. So, I mean, it's all my way of saying that in my experience, what we see in the skies are real and they're really unexplained, but we may be reaching a little bit too far when we associate what we see in the sky with intelligent life. What we see in the sky could and is scientifically proven to be related to what happens underground. So maybe we should be looking underground first and then considering life at altitude, right? Because again, I like to put you and I in the position where what would we do? If you were in charge of researching another planet and you were studying another planet and you saw in your studies that there's a natural energy source in a certain area of that planet, that's probably the first place that you would go. So when I think of the fact that there's a natural energy source under a place like Sedona, Arizona, if I was a visiting intelligent life form, that's one of the first places I would go. Why would I check out Arkansas? Why would I go check out, Wisconsin when I could check out what is this strange energy signature coming underground at this location in Arizona?
So that I know he's talked about the UFO, UAP things on other podcasts, but I haven't heard him talk about it in that sense before. And I was kind of surprised, right, to hear. I mean, basically what he just said there is stuff that I talk about. That's like one of my, I don't talk about it in relationship necessarily to UFOs or UAPs, but I talk about what's under the ground, the metals or the elements or whatever it is, explaining the way individuals interact with those fields to create, phenomena like temporal time travel, dimensional travel, like, time dilation, whatever it is, different kind of stuff, right? There was something different in his demeanor when he was talking about that. Think about how different he showed up when he's talking about that than when he was talking to like John Kiriakou and Dani, when he's doing one of his general CIA intel things. That to me sounds like, whether he's right or wrong is irrelevant, that's like a topic the person of Andrew Bustamante is generally curious about and interested in, not like some assignment he's been on or something he's been sort of briefed on in order to try and get people to believe one thing or the other. I was kind of surprised to hear that.
It's interesting because my take on it was like, what's the play?
Mm-hmm.
And what should the people of Sedona be buckling up for if Bustamante is speaking like that? So for me, I didn't take it as genuine, but at the same time, I was wondering, like, are we just supposed to assume that he knows everything, that he's omniscient because of the vast array of topics he always seems to be talking about on these podcasts?
So when I don't think of him as a genuine person, but even people who are like shady fucks have things that like they're personally interested in versus scams they're pulling to make money or to gain power or whatever it is, right? Like we've all seen this. Like I used to see this when I was doing drugs, right? You'd be at like the drug dealer's house who's like generally into like, seedy stuff that drug dealers are into, but there's like that one cartoon they're deeply passionate about, or this one like athlete that they like, or like one book or something that's their favorite. And when they talk about that, there's like something different about sort of how they show up. That was kind of the point I was making. I think the tying it to UFO or UAPs and it right kind of thing is like, that's never the first place I go with it, but that's not my bias. Like, that's not like, that isn't where my thinking sort of goes. And so, whether he's tying it to those things as a way of sort of, I don't know what that part of it is about. And, he talked about quartz and iron ore or copper ore or whatever it is. Didn't really talk much about like more rare sort of earth metals that have interesting properties. And he certainly didn't talk about the fact, well, not just UFOs and Nikola Tesla are interested in those locations, but so are all the military industrial contractors. So is the Department of Energy, right? There's also particle accelerators in those places and fusion reactors. And usually they're also coincidentally where there was like, an Indian sort of reservation, burial ground, cave, whatever, all that kind of stuff, right? He just kind of was like, Nikola Tesla, UFOs, right? But it was interesting. It didn't feel like he had a whole routine worked out about it to brainwash someone the same way he does when he talks about some of that other shit he talks about on Danny Jones, right? And Sean Ryan didn't look like he was buying it, right? He was like, interesting, right? Anywho, so I thought that was funny that I had I didn't intentionally bring a Bustamante and Kiriakou clip, but it turned out that those were the clips that I brought and they had been on the podcast before, right? And today I was super disappointed in Kiriakou and not impressed by Bustamante, but it was like, oh, okay, well, I think he said a few things in there that were true. So,
We'll see. We'll see if it's just him being genuine and an actual person sharing his interest, or if we should buckle up for the Sedona UAP op.
Well, I think I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. I think both things can be true simultaneously. And also, I was thinking about the thing you were describing from your friend's papers about there being this massive ship underneath the ground that was like acting as the battery for all of that. And the way he was saying, well, when we're talking about UFOs or UAPs, we maybe shouldn't be looking up into the sky about intelligent life. We should be seeing what's under the ground first, right?
Yep.
So it was making me think of that because that's all about free energy as well, right? That's all about when Jeff and I were on our walkabout in October, we learned about these I'm not good with the technical names, but like things that like the power companies and the phone companies, like the reason that they put their lines along the same lines as the railroad tracks is because like the railroad tracks are on ley lines and telluric currents are above, and there's these other kind of currents that's like in the ground that allows them to not have to put so many of them everywhere, because you can put one between two, like not poles but like two segments, like I can't remember the technical term, but you put one in the ground and it creates way more energy at that location because of the kind of currents that are in the ground there than if you were to put it somewhere else. And so you don't have to use as many of them.
Yep.
Right. Like they're strategically placed for that reason. And so I'm, like I think that there's a lot more to this conversation, and it's just a question on some levels of like, what's the chicken and what's the egg? What is the thing that is coming first that is creating the scenario that the other thing is attracted to? And I think a lot of times how we're lied to by intelligence or by whoever about these kinds of topics is we become convinced that about the wrong one being the thing that is the generator of the experience.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Shall we go to the sandbox and throw mud balls with the kids?
Yep.
What's going on, guys?
Thank you, Meredith. We love you, and we're glad that you're safe. And thank you, Nigel, for your super chats.
Thank you, guys. All right. It's time for all capital letters. And if you have questions, comments, anything you want addressed, now's the time. Now's the time. I am here or gone. That's cute.
What new music over the last couple of years have you enjoyed most? I discovered this band, the Murlocs. They're not new per se, but I'm really into the Murlocs.
Interesting. No, so but hold on. Music for me, like I hardly listen to any music that has words or that are like bands that most people are interested in. I like electronic music. But my most favorite is over the last couple months or last couple years. What did he say?
Years.
Yeah, years. Like I'd say like last time in Los Angeles, I saw a DJ that I'd never seen before that like I've definitely like heard him a little bit the last couple of years and, was aware of sort of that I might like this, but his name is Rodhad and it was fantastic. Super duper good.
How do you spell it?
Rodhad, Rodhad. Like, yeah, like for me, that's like the perfect techno on like that kind of sound system in that environment. And then I was kind of brought back to a DJ that like I used to like 20 or more years ago that like he's experimental. He does a lot of different stuff and some things he's liked, some things I haven't, but like I had never heard him rock it quite like this. And his name is Luke Slater. And he also goes by Planetary Assault Systems. And he definitely like vibrated some, like I could feel like he opened up like a pocket universe in a separate membrane with his vibration, right? Like I felt the movement, right? Like I felt like I went from one version of reality to the next at like a certain point, and it was very obvious. And I enjoy experiences like that. So
nice.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Somebody asked if we didn't do any. I had intended to listen to the Tucker Carlson Schellenberger thing. I was trying to listen to some of it while I was trying to watch tennis in the middle of the night the other night because it's Australian Open time. So tennis is in the middle of the night, but I kind of kept falling asleep and having to rewind and whatever. But for me, like the whole thing was, well, two things. I have a couple things to say about this. I should have brought a clip. Yes, we already reported that Tucker Carlson has announced that Michael Schellenberger is the best reporter in America. But second, like one segment about it was basically Michael Schellenberger trying to say that meth users are are likely responsible for these fires, and that like a high percentage of fires that happen in Los Angeles are started by meth users.
Wait, Schellenberger said this?
Yes. Right. And like this is the whole right, the meth users. But this like, okay, so when he said this, I thought, okay, is he gonna say that like we all know that when people build meth labs, they often explode and start fires, right? But there's not too many meth labs like in Los Angeles proper. You have to go out like halfway to Palm Springs or Barstow or Palmdale or something. People aren't usually having a meth lab in the Palisades or in an apartment building downtown for the smell, right? But I'll just say this, as a person who spent 15 years as a meth user and around a lot of other meth users, I never once saw one like start a fire, but he was talking about them having this obsession, this demonic obsession and possession with starting fires. And I noticed a lot of things about meth users during my time in that reality. And that was one I never noticed, right?
How did Schellenberger rationalize his expertise on meth users? Has he done a deep dive?
Well, remember he did. He wrote that book about all the drugged homeless people on the streets.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, he is the greatest journalist in America. So whatever he says.
Everything with him is like tying together all those threads that he uniquely knows everything about, and that none of the rest of us can pull that all together and whatever it is. But this weird, it was almost like demented, this obsession he had. And it, with meth users being like possessed by like their fire starter or something, like Drew Barrymore, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't listen to the whole thing. I will go back and listen to it. Maybe I'll bring something more meaningful next time. All right, what do we have here? Matt Ball. Have you seen Bob Greenyer on Matt Ball Limitless? I have not. Have you, Dani?
No, I don't even know what that is.
They should have tennis techno. They do. There's a DJ. There's a really good sort of house. He plays some techno. He's a unique style. There's a DJ named DJ Tennis, who he's played in like at the Union Station in downtown Los Angeles, and they like turned that whole thing into like a self-transforming environment. He's excellent. So there is DJ Tennis. Let's see. Why do people follow fools? Your guess is as good as mine, because it feels good to be lied to for some reason. There's like a version of reality that you want to believe, and it's easier to believe that than to just not know what's happening. And fools are really delivering that.
We live in a realm of frequency, right? So like people who are confirming their bias. Hi Heart Wellness. My co-hosting on Twitter Space with Jeremiah was pure hell. I hated every second, and I will never do another Twitter Space again. It devolved. Nigel was there, and Nigel, you were my fucking hero, and thank you so much for being a voice of reason during that nightmare. But it devolved into like a super low vibe Israel screaming match. It was like such a waste of time, and I hated every second.
Is this the same one that you talked about last week?
I thought I had talked about it, but I just noticed that James had asked.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if you were on another thing this week.
No,
okay.
no. I'm not doing those again.
You may have just told me that privately. You might not.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. So Lehner said he also stated that the fires did not start due to wind and tree lawns. It was dirty electricity of arching and dissipating in 100-year-old lines. Do you know how many shirt changes he had because of his profuse sweating? Really, that's interesting. Some of the tennis players have to change their shirts lots of times, right? Some can play the whole match in the same kit, and others have to change it like in between every set because of the profuse sweating. So interesting that Schellenberger is a sweaty little fuck. All right, what is the deal with JP Sears? Is he controlled? Did you know he was a student of Paul Check? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's I don't know if he's controlled or if he's just naturally a useful idiot, but like he had like a moment like 5 or 6 years ago where it was like, oh, he had a funny video, like one of them was funny, right? And that was it. And this is what happens when somebody does a funny thing once and like it goes viral, and then they're like, okay, I'm just gonna have to find ways of like basically doing the same thing over and over, but like making it a little bit different so people will think it's new and call that my career. And then I also think I'm like, qualified to weigh in on, maybe, I don't know if I'm qualified to weigh in on everything, but yeah, I think there was one JP Sears funny video.
I'm not a fan. I heard he's repped by CAA, which I think happened after his like FOVID stuff. I don't know. He seems like a great candidate to be in the wellness company situation, especially since he has a new supplement with Mickey. I don't know him. I can't.
Well, he's definitely one of like the fitness bros. I think he lives in Austin. Does he live in Austin?
Oh, for sure.
I think he works out at On It. Like he's in the
he's part of the whole thing.
He's in the cult.
Thank you, Jerusha, for the super chat. Am I saying it right?
Yay! Thank you,
That
Jerusha.
is so sweet. Thank you so much.
Now all we have the chance to self-report our previously unauthorized opinions to the whole world. How do people not get that? The internet is forever, and what's okay now may not be later. Great show. Thank you very much, Jerusha. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have said a lot of stuff on the internet over the years without much regard to what may come. But, you know, I think Dani's shirt is the explanation for that.
This is my new version. I had a request for.
I was going to say, look, I know those. I know the saying, but I don't recall that shirt.
So I had a request from some men for a version that had men on it, and I thought he was so freaking cute. And this one, I'm hoping you can see, but it has a print on the back too. Can you see it?
Yes, I see it. Yes, talk so that it gets big though. It would get small.
Oh shit!
You have to talk.
See the image on back.
Yes, I love it.
Thank
Free
you
speech.
so much.
Free speech always, 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 and forever. I love it.
Because always is spatial, not temporal. Another mindfuck. And if anyone is interested in having their own I say what I want shirt, then DM me politely.
And I got to interview my favorite tennis podcaster and commentator. He's a commentator on the tennis channel. He came on my show the other day. I just put the whole hour out publicly because it's during Australian Open time or whatever. But this is the first time I've like had a person I was really looking forward to and excited to meet who like is sort of a celebrity to me, and it wasn't like completely disappointing, right? Like there's been plenty of people I've met in our realm of the alternative media, but when I'm thinking about like famous DJs or athletes or whatever from stuff like that, generally when you meet them, it's like, oh, I would have been better just to stay a fan. But he was super, super friendly and nice and showed up just like how he is on his own stuff. And yeah. It was exciting for me. I know that like most of the people are probably not that into tennis, but like he's an expert at tactical analysis, and I've learned so much that I bring into my own stuff when I'm talking about mind control or what all these things that we look at. Like a shift in perspective in the way that I look at these things largely came from learning how to break sort of patterns and relationships between opponents down. Right. And so anyone who's interested in that kind of thing, go check it out. I was super excited.
I also saw, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I don't have very many of those, like, you know, things that I get super excited about to meet someone that I don't usually look up to 26-year-olds, but in this case I do. So
I love that. I also saw that you did an interview with Tom Foolery, who was like, he's like a super fan of yours. And I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed my conversation. Like he came so prepared. He asked really good questions. Did you have a similar experience with him?
Yeah, we had a great show. And he likes tennis too. He's a tennis coach, right? And so we talked a little bit of tennis, not as much as I would have liked to, but I've maybe found myself like a fellow alt media conspiratorial person who also likes tennis that I can have ongoing banter with that gets into the minutia, not just sort of the generals of it. So yeah, he was very kind. I was on that. So yeah, I posted that. He's right. Yeah, it was good.
Nice. Yay.
It was good. All right. Are we done? We're done. All right.
I feel good. Thank you guys.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. And anything else? Are we forgetting anything? I don't think so. I think that's all.
Everyone's asking about Jack Cruz. If we care, we'll talk about it next week.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Jack Cruz. Like I've been observing all the stuff about him, and it's just like, oh my God. All right, guys. Everybody have a lovely evening. We'll see you next time. Good night.